All right, we're live on YouTube.
YouTube, what's going on, guys? Juan is going to let me know when he hits that record button, and we're going to kick off a nice little Sunday special episode.
Just click record right now.
Yep, go ahead and click record.
There we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a Sunday special event of the On Point Discussion podcast. I, of course, am Rhino. You can find me on Twitter at Sports Talk Rhino. I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Juan. You can find him on Twitter as well at Bears Fanatico94. And of course, the podcast Twitter page On Point Discussion is found at Talks on Point on Twitter. We are bringing to you today a special edition of the On Point Discussion podcast. We are waiting on a special guest, Rob Hart from WBBM in Chicago. While he is on his way, we're just going to kick things off. We'll give a shout out to our sponsor, One Call Technology. They are a family-owned business with over 100 years of experience in virtually every aspect of business phone systems installation and service, managed telecom service provider, telecom carrier management, and high-speed internet. Head on over to One Call's website at www.onecalltech.com or give them a call at 888-585-8850 and tell them that the Lounge Room Network sent you. Juan, it's a little later than we usually record. It's also Sunday, so my mental clock is a little bit off, but I think I'm going to manage this evening. How are you doing, bud?
I'm doing well. I'm tired. Probably gonna hit the hay right after we are done here. It is almost 8:30 here in Milwaukee, and yeah, it's been a long day. Doing a lot of chores around the house. Watched my beloved White Sox sweep the Rangers today on TV. Also saw the Brewers took a nice W down in Chicago, so I was happy about that. And yeah, we're doing well. How are you doing? How are things going for you?
I have had better Sundays. My girlfriend unfortunately decided to destroy a deer with my full-size pickup truck at a speed of approximately 58 miles an hour. Not very significant damage to my truck. Very morbid damage to the deer. I'll just put it like that. It was not very fun pulling its entrails out of the radiator of my truck.
That's one of the risks about living in Wisconsin, driving in rural Wisconsin, especially, in the fall and, even right now in the spring, there's deer, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
And it sucks to hit one. I have never hit one, like I was telling you in the, before we came on, knock on wood, but that's something I definitely do not want to experience anytime soon. So.
The closest call I ever had in my life, I was in northern Wisconsin. This was about 5-6 years ago. And at the time I had just a little tiny hatchback. And I'm one of the backcountry roads, and it's heavily wooded in places in northern Wisconsin. So I was driving through a particularly wooded area, very heavily wooded area. And as I'm coming around a curve, a massive buck is just standing right in the middle of the road. He's not running. He's not doing anything. I'm going almost 60 miles an hour and I have to slam on my brakes. And I was smart enough actually to grab the emergency brake, and I hit that too. So I'm sliding to a stop. I stopped probably about 5 feet in front of this deer, and he just stared at me. I don't know if this deer was, had something wrong with it, or if he just didn't care that a car half its size was coming at him. But this is probably one of the largest bucks I've ever seen in my entire life. Had I hit that deer, it would have caused more damage to my car than it would have the deer.
And actually, sorry, I don't mean to cut you, but Rob has entered the waiting room. So we're going to let Rob Harden from WBBM in Chicago.
Fantastic. All right, we are joined now by Rob Hart with WBBM out of Chicago, 780 AM and 105.9 FM. You can find him on Twitter at Rob Hart, WBBM. Rob, thank you very much for joining us on this Sunday evening. I would like to extend our appreciation for joining the podcast. How are you doing, sir?
Doing very well. Thank you for having me today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Rob, Juan and I are both Wisconsin natives. We understand that you actually started your career, your education in Wisconsin. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I went to Marquette University, and I grew up in Chicago, and native of the southwest side of the city, and for reasons that are known only to the faculty and staff of Marquette, I managed to get a great deal of scholarship money, and that managed to cinch the decision to go to Marquette fairly easily. Like a lot of prospective, wannabe broadcasters, I looked at Syracuse. I looked at the University of Southern California, which was an interesting experience because I was looking at colleges in the spring of 1998. And we actually flew out to Los Angeles to go look at the USC campus. And all the way out there, my parents were telling me, like, you should understand, University of Southern California in a rather, working class neighborhood. It's not too far away from South Central. They actually had to lock it down during the riots a couple of years before. And then it's not Hollywood. It's not glamorous. And then we get there and we find out that the Academy Awards that weekend are being held at the Shrine Auditorium right across the street from the USC campus. So we tour the student newspaper and the student radio station, and everybody had credentials to cover the Oscars. So you go from, no, this is not, Hollywood glitz and glamour, to actually this is Hollywood's most glamorous night. But then Marquette showed up with the rather considerable amount of scholarship money, and that began a relationship with the university that has extended through my brother and sister. And it was the beginning of my broadcasting career at WTMJ. I managed to start there because of a relationship between the radio station's executive producer and one of the broadcasting professors at the time.
That is a phenomenal story about USC and the Oscars, by the way. I'm sure your parents
It's
probably
really
out there
fun.
were like, what is going on?
We were touring the campus, and this is just and there's this phenomenon in LA of where you can pay someone to stand in line for you. So if you want to be one of the people cheering for the stars as they enter the auditorium, you could pay someone $500 or $600 to basically camp out in front of the auditorium for you for that entire weekend. Then you show up and you have your place and you can wave at people. And it was an interesting perspective on the show because they would tell you like where the limousines would all line up, and you're just imagining, these actors and actresses, directors, titans of the entertainment industry, people who you think would exist on some other social or financial plane, but like everybody else, they are lined up on the street next to the auditorium, and it's like there's regular businesses you would see on the street. So I was just imagining like Tom Hanks in his limousine waiting past. There's a donut place called Spudnuts Donuts that always jumped out at me, and that was on along the limo staging route to the Oscars in 1998.
That's absolutely incredible.
That's awesome. I was gonna say, Rob, I wanted to ask you. So, like Rhino said, we're both up here in Wisconsin, but more specifically, about your time here in Milwaukee. What do you miss most about Milwaukee and kind of what it has to offer?
I tell everybody, because I'm still active in Marquette's mentorship program for people who want to go into the communications program, and most of them they are from the Chicago area, and to a person, their dream is to go back to Chicago and become a sports anchor on TV or a host at the Score, or pursue some avenue of sports broadcasting. And I tell them, you are in the best place to do that in Milwaukee. Not only because there's now this glut of sport. I don't want to call it glut, but there are a lot of sports radio stations in the market that were not there when I was working at WTMJ.
Mm-hmm.
And because they have this need for people to get audio and go to games and cover things, the Bucks are right there, the
Mhm.
Brewers are right there. Just because the Packers are a national team or a nationally known team, there will always be, the eyes of the entire, American football fan base will always be on Green Bay because the Packers will always be relevant. So I think
Mhm.
that's a great thing about Milwaukee from a wanting to be a sports broadcaster standpoint. My brother still lives in Bayview with his wife.
Hmm.
My mother-in-law and father-in-law live in Menominee Falls. They are in a senior housing development up there. My brother-in-law owns an optometry shop in Wauwatosa. My other brother-in-law is a lobbyist for Briggs and Stratton. So I go up to Wisconsin a lot still.
Mhm.
Uh, 16 years after I moved away and moved to Chicago. And there's so many great things about Milwaukee and Wisconsin. It is like a major world-class city. I think a lot of people have come to discover it as a knowledge hub, a technical hub, a city that has really kind of rebuilt itself from where it was in the 80s as far as being like this industrial powerhouse. And once industry moved out, they found ways to bring other businesses back in, but the way it can sell itself to the rest of the country is that it still has that very unique Wisconsin unique Milwaukee cultural flavor that no matter, whether you worked with your hands for Alice Chalmers 40 years ago, or you work for GE Healthcare, you fall in love with with Milwaukee and its culture and its festivals and its food and everything it has to offer.
Yeah,
Mhm.
you've actually about half of the places that you named, I've actually done work at. My job outside of podcasting, I'm a steam fitter, so GE, Briggs and Stratton,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of these places I've seen. And the one thing that I love the most about Milwaukee, it's the smallest big city in America. It is a major metropolitan area, but it still has that small town feel to it when you're there. You mentioned it, the festivals, the brewery traditions that are in Milwaukee. I mean, it's got that small town feel, but it is a major metropolitan area.
Well, the thing I always liked about the festival kind of traditions in Milwaukee was that you could set your calendar. You kind of knew where you were in the summer based on when the festivals hit, because you always knew, okay, it's late June, Summerfest is starting, and
Yep.
then you went through Festa, and German Fest was always like the tip off that Labor Day was right around the corner and summer was coming to an end.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
all of those festivals are number one to me. I mean, I love every single one of them. I wanted to ask you, when you were getting into this with Marquette, did you initially want to be in sports broadcasting? What was your motivation behind wanting to get into broadcast journalism?
Well, I originally went to Marquette with the intention of becoming a TV news anchor, and we had we still there's still a campus television station. There's still a studio in Johnston Hall, and they would do a TV newscast Monday through Thursday night. Uh, Monday through Wednesday, there were two 15-minute newscasts. So two different groups of campus news anchors could do a show and not feel like they're being left out. But then the big flagship program was the 30-minute show that ran on Thursday night. And I enjoyed it. I liked it. And then my only link to Chicago at the time was the 50,000 watt AM radio stations out of the city. So this is
Mhm.
1998. You had the score was on 1160 at the time, so that didn't necessarily make its way into Milwaukee. MVP was on AM 1000. For news, you had BBM 780 and then 670, the late great WMAQ,
Mhm.
and WLS, which was 890. And they had this afternoon show with Rokon and Gary Meyer. And I started listening to it because it reminded me of home, but they had such good chemistry and it was such a good combination. And I became like this fanatical fan of the show. And I thought, maybe there's something to radio as a profession and a thing that I could do. So while I still did the TV news, the campus TV news program, I signed up for a couple of shifts on the radio station, attempted to do a Roe and Gary type show on the campus radio station, and thought, this could there could be something to this. So fast forward a year, it's December of 1999, and the broadcasting advisor says, how do you feel about getting a job up here? And I said, I had to think about it, because this would require like getting an apartment and
Mhm.
moving away from home. But once I was able to make all of those things work, I accepted this job at TMJ Radio as a weekend newscaster slash board operator slash sports talk show producer. So you would work Saturday nights. My job was 6 to midnight. You'd get there at 6, and then you would answer phones for the sports talk show up until Brewers pregame. And on evening Saturday nights, it was usually Brewers pregame would hit at 6:30, and then you would you'd play all the commercials during the game, and then they'd have like a 10-minute wrap up at the end of the game, and then you would do taped programming already in progress, and then you would do the newscasts inside those taped shows. And it was literally on tape. You would have to string up a reel-to-reel machine, and you would just say, you've been listening to the Brewers on WTMJ. Now the best of consumer advocate Clark Howard already in progress. And then you'd run that until midnight. And you'd think you'd go back to Marquette. The campus parties were still in full swing, and you walk into these things thinking like, you had just walked on the moon. Like, I was on the radio. How about that? And you think like all of Milwaukee was listening to you. It's like, if it was 100 people, maybe 200 people listening to learn how not to get ripped off when buying a car after a Brewers game, it would have been pretty amazing. But it was a great way to get in. It was a great way to get actual broadcasting work under your belt, and I would never trade that experience for the world, because it got me on my way. And from there, it was, every time another opening had presented itself, I kind of worked my way up, through the ranks of the newsroom. And then by the time I left, I was on their morning show. They had a morning news program. You would write the newscasts and then serve as a studio reporter and fill in anchor. And it was a tremendous amount of experience. And I would not be here if not for that.
Mhm.
Juan, did you have any other follow-up questions?
Well, I actually wanted to ask, or just wanted to make a comment first, that I here in Milwaukee, I still listen to 780. This is kind of my small fan moment segment, but I really enjoy listening to your segments on 780. When I'm driving to work or when I'm driving home from work.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, it's really it's funny how you do something for a while and you run into people who are in the same position as I was at the very beginning, where
Mhm.
you're just you listen to people on the radio and you're like, man, they're I really enjoy what they do. And then flash forward 15 or 20 years, and then you're all working together, you're going to their family parties and stuff. And so I'm glad you really appreciate the work that I do.
Mhm.
It really means a lot to me.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, like I said, I listen in, and I listen to the segments that you have on the news station, and yeah, definitely, respect the work that you've done, throughout the years, of course, on the radio waves.
Most
The
of them
other,
come from this glamorous basement facility. Or this I'm down here because it has the best acoustics in the house. There's no echo. I've spent the last 13 months like putting up as much foam padding as possible. So yeah, all the reporting segments come out of here. This very glamorous facility.
well, I sincerely appreciate for you for sharing that secret with us about where the art happens. But the other thing I wanted to ask you, Rob, so obviously, throughout the past few years, the media in this country, right, has taken a beating from, certain political figures in this country, right? And I just wanted to ask you, I guess, kind of what, like, as a journalist, right, as a reporter, how do you navigate around all that, all of this talk on, the quote unquote fake news, and all these attacks on the press and whatnot. How are you able to continue to do your, day-to-day reporting and journalism, right? In spite of everything that's kind of, that's been said, the rhetoric, throughout the past few years.
Well, I mean, I'm a firm believer that, professionalism always wins the day. And that if people want to criticize you, they need to find something for which they can criticize you for. And if you do a credible job, and if you are very professional and very deliberate, and make sure you have a source for everything that you say and that you have facts to back you up, then you've done your job, and you can address any criticism on that basis. However, I'm also a, a fan of history, and the rhetoric that we've heard regarding the role of the news media, especially since the 2016 election, is not necessarily new. If fake news was popularized by the previous president, but if you go back to 1969 and 1970, Spiro Agnew, who was the vice president of the United States under Richard Nixon, once referred to the news media as the nattering nabobs of negativism. So this has always been around in some form or another, where there is some group who believes that the news media, whether it's back then was TV networks, radio, newspapers, magazines, and then today this much wider world, that they're putting the thumb on the scale. But there's also there was another oh, the easiest and most accessible, and the media criticism that like people can glom onto immediately is the kind from the right. But there's also plenty from the left that suggests that reporters are merely carrying out the agendas of the owner of that particular outfit. For many years, when GE owned NBC, there was belief that NBC News was carrying water for defense contractors and government agencies that would shower federal contracts on the network. So that criticism has always been out there, and none of it is new. It's, as I said before, it's been around for decades, even longer than 50 years ago. So I just believe your best insulation against that type of criticism is just to do a professional job. And if you're a professional, then if people start to criticize you, your supervisor will point to your professionalism and say, look, this is solid work. We stand by it. You may disagree with it, but the methodology that we have used to arrive here is solid and professional and ethical and proper.
I grew up in an era of listening to guys like Tom Brokaw and Dan Rather, guys where, if you were listening to what they were saying, you believed it. It was true. It was respectful. It was something that you should take seriously. And it's like now we're in an era where you have people like Rachel Maddow or Tucker Carlson, where they're bordering almost on completely biased to one particular side of the political spectrum. Do you think over the years, or have you seen, at least in your professional opinion, a change in the integrity in which reporting is actually happening?
Well, I think you still have the flagship network news programs: NBC Nightly News, World News Tonight, and ABC, the CBS Evening News. I think still operate as fact-based professional newscasts. There is a team of correspondents around the world. There are producers, there are writers, there are editors, there are researchers that want to make sure that there is a 30-minute factually solid broadcast that lets you know what is going on in the world today. The cable news operates almost on a different track. It has evolved differently. CNN came on in June of 1980, and it was like an all news format initially. If you want to check this out, someone recorded an hour of CNN from the day the Challenger exploded, and it was the hour leading up to the launch. And it's basically it's a straight ahead newscast. Here's what's happening in Washington. We're monitoring the launch of the space shuttle. They had a sports segment. They had weather, and they just kind of repeated that wheel as the day went on. And in the early going, CNN only had one opinion news show. It was Crossfire, which was initially hosted by Pat Buchanan on the right, and what was the liberal's name? His name escapes me, but they were drive time radio hosts in Washington, and they were elevated to this show on CNN. And that was it as far as opinion programming was concerned. There were a couple of political roundtable shows, but that was the extent of it. And then Fox came on the scene in 1996, and they took their cues from talk radio in terms of opinion-based programming in prime time. And in like the decade after Fox came on the scene, CNN and MSNBC tried to adjust to the fact that Fox had kind of set the standard as far as opinion-based cable news programming is concerned. Around the time of Barack Obama's run through the Democratic primary in 2008, MSNBC kind of coalesced around kind of a liberal-ish identity, first forged by Keith Olbermann and then later by Rachel Maddow. And CNN, always tried to stay down the middle with various kind of like it was opinion programming at night that didn't really please anybody, but didn't have a natural constituency. So cable has just kind of evolved at a different plane. The primetime opinion shows are how they establish their brands. And yes, there is a conservative America cable news channel that can feed your worldview. There is a left of center cable news channel that can feed your worldview. But there's also, if you still want it straight down the middle news program, those old school network newscasts, 5:30, still fit the bill quite nicely.
Do you think with these, specific cable news channels that are reporting one specific side, whether it be far right leaning or left center, right center, do you think that fuels political divide more in this country?
Yeah, because people do choose their own reality, and politics has gone from a thing that for the average American, politics has gone from a thing that happens every 4 years or maybe 2 years, and really has become a lifestyle brand for a lot of people. If you are it's your political identity, and then it becomes your personal identity, and then outside of the the reinforcement you get from whichever cable news channel fits your worldview, then you multiply that times 10 or 15 or 20, because you choose all of your social media friends and your social media circles kind of based on your political identity, and it's always like this never ending feedback loop. And yeah, then it results in people losing friends or getting different friends, or all of a sudden taking on stances about other issues that they had never thought of before. So that is a contributing factor, yes. And now that you have more sources online, or entities online that claim to be sources, you're more pushed into your tribe than you might have ever been before.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I know, Rob, I know you have to start, hopping out of here in a few minutes, but just really quickly, I wanted to ask you on a side note. I know you're a White Sox fan as well, if I'm not
Yes,
mistaken.
I see
Right.
Lucas Giolito in the background.
Yes, yep. I've got my Giolito picture back here. I know Rhino's a Cubs fan, so
He did
probably
that on
isn't.
purpose, didn't you, Juan?
Well, this is all about balance. This is all about getting out of your feedback loop. But right here in the studio, we have the Hawk and DJ bobblehead, and we have Mark Burley,
I
Beautiful.
did like Mark Burley a lot. He was a great
Yes.
pitcher.
and a few other bobbleheads from ballpark giveaways long ago. There's a Jose Abreu and a Greg Luzinski off camera as well too.
Absolutely beautiful. Do you see a World Series run for the White Sox in the next few years?
You know what? I'm feeling a lot better about the team now than I did when Eloy got hurt a couple of weeks ago. When he went down in spring training, I thought, oh man, this. You don't want a debilitating injury, but this could be it. And then the emergence of Yermin Mercedes as a member of the all-world team, and then Adam Eaton kind of
Yes.
running the calendar back to 2014. That's been a pleasant thing to see. The starting pitching has been excellent so far. The bullpen got over a couple of early hiccups. I was just looking at the standings, and one of the neat things that MLB has done is they also include run differential now. And I think as of this evening, the White Sox have the best run differential in the American League. They are one ahead of Boston, and I think are third in baseball overall. So it's been you got past the first week and a half that was kind of uneven, but they're starting to click if they have not clicked already.
Things are definitely looking brighter down at 35th and Shields.
Sweep the Rangers, and even last night when you blow the save and then you come back to win in the ninth inning, you avoid the ghost runner on second in the 10th.
Yes, Nick Madrigal last night coming in to save the day for the White Sox. that walk off. Yes, absolutely. Well, Rob, thank you so much again for joining us tonight, and I sincerely appreciate you responding to me and getting back to me about coming on. And I speak for Rhino as well and our entire emerging network here. Thank you very
much, Rob.
Thank you so much, and best of luck to you. And I really hope this turns into something that's a lot of fun for the both of you, because it's a neat time to be doing this. I mean, back, I was talking about when I was starting in the the late 90s, it was radio, it was TV, and it was print. And there were a couple of people who went into something called new media, and trying to find something and making it work online. And now everybody has an outlet. Now everybody can do, if as long as as long as you consider it a labor of love, and just keep kind of churning out content, and you like churning out content, you can turn yourself into a media outlet. You don't need to wait for somebody else.
Mhm.
Phenomenal
Absolutely.
point. Phenomenal point. Once again, thank you very much for coming on the network and the podcast today. And best of luck in these times of media frenzy with everything that's going on in the world right now.
Well, thank you very much. And once again, a great thing about being in the 21st century is that you can turn this into a broadcasting facility. Which could not do not too long ago.
Well, thank you again, Robin. I wish you all the best, and I hope you have a good, rest of your night.
All right, thanks a lot. And anytime, I'll be happy to come back.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate
Awesome.
that. We look
Thank
forward
you.
to it.
All right,
Thank
thanks
you.
a lot. Have a great
Yep.
evening.
Yep, you too.
That was Rob Hart from WBBM out of Chicago, 780 AM Talk Radio. Once again, you can find him on Twitter at Rob Hart WBBM. Make sure you add those letters into his Twitter tag as well. Great dialogue with Rob. He makes a lot of great points. Especially with the cable news networks. I really liked his answer to the particular question I had in terms of, do you think that the cable news networks with their specific reporting nature are leading to more political divide? And I wholeheartedly believe that myself. And that's on whatever side of the political spectrum you lean, whether it's left or right. I think when you are set in your certain ways, and then you start watching something that is broadcast to you as well in those certain ways, it really eliminates the opportunity for you to see the other side of the political spectrum. When you hear nothing but negative rhetoric, negative dialogue about the other side, it really turns people into a closed-minded person. I for one, I do have a certain way that I lean politically. However, one thing that I do pride myself on is I am always willing to listen to the other side of the conversation. I'm always willing to listen to the other points that are being made. And that's something that you really do not see with cable news stations, your CNNs, your MSNBCs, your Fox News. You really don't get that opportunity to have that open dialogue on the other side of what they're reporting on.
No, I definitely agree. And, one of the things with the way that, people operate today is that a lot of individuals, unfortunately, are very, very dense and closed-minded, And one of the things that I've always advocated for is, making sure that you're getting both narratives on a story, because if you're not going out and doing your own independent research on stuff, you're more than likely not going to be getting the actual real information on whatever story you're researching and you're looking at in the first place. And so Rob was talking about this, back in the day when CNN first started, right? It was a lot easier to just sit down, watch the news, and just get the information flat out, because you knew that that's what it was. It was just news. Like, it was just newscasting. It wasn't like giving opinion. It wasn't giving a flaming rhetoric that was maybe going on around in that time. And now, with everything that's happened and society changes, there's a lot more of that need to throw in shade to, let's say, a particular or a differing political party now, because you want to get those viewers. You want to make sure that you're routing up your base. And that's unfortunately where the state of the media is. And not every journalist is like that. I'm not going to sit here and blanket every single, there's some very good journalists out there who actually take the time to research what they're reporting on and giving it to you straight, right? So there's still good reporters out there. You just have to know where to look for them.
Yeah, it's actually really steered me away from watching these networks, because I will tune into both sides of the political spectrum. I'll tune into their news stations, their newscasts, just to see what is being said about. It's almost like high school gossip with the news networks. You tune into one to see what they're saying about the other, and then you go back to the other to see what they're saying in response to the original. And I do believe that a lot of journalistic integrity has been lost with these cable networks, and it feels like they're no longer reporting the news for our benefit. They're reporting the news for their benefit. And when you start listening to a broadcaster who is no longer telling you what you need to know, but telling you what he or she wants you to know, that is when you start to have a problem. And that is a problem that has begun spiraling, snowballing, avalanche down the hill style of problem nowadays. And I wish there was more accountability that was held in the media. And it seems like accountability has all been lost.
I would be 100% in agreement with you on that point. And just really quickly, I'm looking at the live chat here. I just want to read some comments off. Didn't want to read any with, obviously with Rob on, because I didn't want to seem rude. But our friend Adam says Chicagoland radio is the best, something that he's missed since he left, the Chicagoland area. Our friend Cash says that's why personal research and credible podcasts are important. Plenty of Go White Sox comments from our friend Adam in the chat, and
he's now banned from the chat.
Shout out to Adam Kunos. He's down in Florida right now, and my friend Aaron drops in saying hello, good evening, gentlemen. So no, I sincerely appreciate the people who are commenting or listening in right now. I know it's a little past 9 o'clock here and
yes, thank you so much for tuning in with this special edition late evening podcast. So we definitely appreciate all of you that are watching right now or listening.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, we'll probably start wrapping it up here in a few minutes, but just once again, my sincerest appreciation to Rob Hart for coming on. And I told myself I wasn't going to do it, but I had to throw that little fan.
You had the fanboy?
Yeah, the fanboy moment. I was like, I listen to you. I'll drive to work, and I'm
surprised you didn't have your Rob Hart poster hanging up in the background, just to remind him of how much you enjoy.
No, I listen. I hear his segments. That'll and it was really, just one last thing, actually, real quick. It was really cool that he actually told us that a lot of those segments that he records are done in his basement.
Yeah.
I would have never thought that that's where I would have thought they were done in like the studio. And
with COVID, a lot of people are recording from home now. A lot of my favorite sports talk radio stations in the Milwaukee and Madison area, a lot of them will literally post the videos of their live cast. And it took me a couple of months before I was like, wait a minute, is that a couch? Pretty sure that dude's in his basement.
that's super cool though, because it gives you, it almost gives you a sense of, well, maybe like this person, he might have that, he has that blue check mark on Twitter, but he's still just a regular human being like all of us, going through the same things that we're going through, that you and I are going through. And so that just, it makes it very personable. And when he said that he was doing those recordings in his basement, I was like, okay, that's funny. Obviously we laughed it off, but yeah, it just, it hits home. I mean, I'm sitting in a den right now doing this podcast.
I'm sitting in an empty basement because I'm in the process of moving from Madison to Belgium, and my entire basement is pretty much cleared out. So that picture I posted on Twitter earlier of Will Smith on the final episode of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, where he walks in the living room, he's just standing there. That was literally me when I got home and walked out of my basement. I just walked in, I'm like, I don't have anything right now. I went from having a 65-inch TV and 240s, a big entertainment system set up, to now I have a 32-inch Samsung from 2007 on top of a nightstand with a Fire Stick hooked up to it. That's my only form of entertainment right now. So
you're probably sitting on like a bucket. I'm
sitting on a folding chair, and I'm on my laptop. Yeah.
Yep. I was gonna say. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're approaching 9:15 Central here, and I think it'll probably be a good time to call it quits for the night. Just because it is Sunday night, and both of both of us have work tomorrow morning, unfortunately, but catch me at the ball game tomorrow night, though. Brewers, Marlins, I believe it is. Tomorrow
And also
night.
catch our boy Brandon from Brew City
Yes.
Lounge as well.
Yep.
Does he have any intentions of doing any kind of live?
So we're currently working through that.
Okay.
We had discussed it potentially.
Okay.
I haven't heard anything back, but if we do something tomorrow, make sure to go live for all of you. But yes, check him out at Wisco_Brandon, I believe is his Twitter
Yes, it
handle.
is.
And then his
Also the Brew
podcast
City Lounge.
is at Brew City Lounge. Excellent podcaster, ladies and gentlemen, here on the Lounge Room Network. And
Brew City Pod. Sorry, guys.
Bruce,
I apologize. Brew City Pod. Brew City Pod.
Brew City
Yep.
Pod. Yes. But yeah, like I was saying, excellent podcaster, doing very, very good things for the network as a whole and for his podcast.
Shameless plug. He is also my co-host on Titletown Lounge. Shameless plug. Sorry.
For those who are listening in the audience, disregard that. No one cares. No, just I'm kidding. I'm kidding. At the Titletown Lounge, the Rhino and Brandon do phenomenal
Heated
work as
debate
well.
today. Heated debate.
Yes. Today's episode of the Titletown Lounge, I think, was sponsored in part by violence.
Violence, yeah. Violence. Brandon's sister Brittany was just going off in the comment sections. But I am so glad that she decided to chime in like that, because our conversation went from 0 to 60 real quick. So it was a great episode.
I was tuning into that, and you said I wasn't there, but I was there. I mean, I was there in spirit. And but yes, for On Point discussion, this has been the Sunday night special featuring Rob Hart from News Radio 780 and 105.9 FM in WBBM, at Sports Talk Rhino, at Bears Fanatical 94. Signing off for tonight. We will be back Wednesday for another episode of On Point discussion. And until then, have a good night. Have a good start to your work week, and we will see you all